Hi, I'm Ofemo Matthias and I'm a software engineer, and today I'll be reviewing Multiplayer, a platform designed to help software engineers debug complex systems through full stack session recordings. Now, I've spent some time in the past few days exploring Multiplayer, testing its features like session recording, the MCP server, notebooks, and just to share my own personal experience using the platform so far. So, we'll talk about what makes Multiplayer unique, how it can improve engineering collaboration, and a few suggestions that I think could make it even better. So, first of all, the first thing is okay, so why use multiplayer? So, what differentiates multiplayer from other video recording platforms, popular ones like the OBS Studio, is that OBS Studio just stops at the UI. The multiplayer captures the entire stack, like the front end screens, the backend traces, the logs, several metrics, full request and response payloads, and they are very well organized and can provide extra information or data that you need so you can feed it into your AI so as to properly debug your code. Now, another thing I want to also mention is that it brings into context or into account all that you would normally get from your video screen recorder, your debugging tools, and your API management tools like Postman. And when you are demoing, for example, to product managers and stakeholders, as software engineers, we can easily track why and where an error occurred, or to any of your line managers, for example. That makes it easier to manage a project. Now, it creates a way for software engineers to easily collaborate. Another reason is software engineers can easily collaborate to work on their applications to fix bugs, since a session recordings can be shared amongst team members. Now, I want to mention that the full stack session recordings, because I used one of our projects that we've been working on, I used it to test the multiplayer app. So this was the project that I used, and the session recordings basically come in two forms. So the first one being what we call the on-demand session recording, which is this enable session recording on this site. And then we have the continuous session recordings. So the on-demand session recordings, the first thing you have to do to be able to get this is that you come here, you come right here, and then you sign up for a multiplayer account. Then after you sign up for a multiplayer account, then right over here, you download this browser extension, the multiplayer browser extension to use. And then once you download it and you sign in with your account, you should be able to see this. And then you can use this enable session recording on this site. So what it does is that it will capture the video recording of your project at that particular time you want to use it, so that you can use it to collaborate as a team and fix bugs. Now, there's also another one known as the continuous session recording. Now, this is in the beta phase, meaning it's in the testing phase. It can be used, but they are still trying to test. So it's not completely done yet. And it's what the continuous session recording basically does is that it records all sessions automatically in the background. It also saves specific session recordings at any time a bug occurs, making it easy to catch, hard to reproduce, or hard to view bugs. So for anytime you are doing the session recording and you use continuous, for anytime a bug is experienced, it is saved automatically amongst your sessions, which is here. So when you record, so basically to record, you just click here, you click start recording, and then when you start recording, you can automatically just press stop. You press stop and then you save. Then immediately you save, automatically it comes into the list of sessions that you've recorded, which is right here. And so yeah, and also concerning the session, you can filter by continuous or on demand, which is manual session recording, how it was created, and also the name. So another thing I would also like to talk about is that session recordings. Let's use this one as an example. This was one of the sessions that, this was one of the sessions that I recorded. So a good thing about this is that it keeps track of all the events that was performed. So in this case now, we had a click event. And several buttons were clicked, like the login button. It tells you what event occurred. It also tells you the text written on the button, like in this case now it was login, in this case it was upload. Now for every event that occurs, it also tells you the time in the video you can locate it. So at what particular time did that event occur. Then another thing I also wanted to also mention was another session I recorded, is that it also keeps track of any console.log. So especially when you're because this project is currently in the dev environment, so any console.log that was used, it keeps track of it. And if there's any error on your console, so it's automatically reflected here, which is similar to your browser dev tools. It also keeps track of your API endpoints that you make requests to. So right here, it gives you access to the your request URL. It tells you how long it took for the response. It gives you the status, tells you how long it took. It gives you the status code. If you made any request using a payload or a body, it sends it to you. It also gives you back the response, similar to what you would get from your API management tools like Postman. And also too, it also gives you the request headers, the response, and just several things like that. So another thing I want to also talk about is the logs. So the logs now, for example, it's for applications that are on production. You can easily see the logs that was used for your app in the production environment from popular logs, for example, like Winston and Pino. So if you use any logs, for example, now if your app logged in successfully, so it automatically display here and it keeps track of it. So another thing I also want to also mention is that you can also draw a sketch. You can draw a sketch. Let's say, for example, now draw a sketch, and then you can also write a note concerning this. Like, look at this sketch here I drew, and I said, please make the button red. So what it does is that all this information that is stored from your sketch to your session recordings to your logs, your events, your console, these things, they provide useful information that you can feed into your AI to properly debug your code. And that is very useful using what we call an MCP server. So now, the MCP server basically allows you to, this is an example of the MCP server over here. This is the MCP server. So my MCP server is currently connected to my multiplayer account. So what it does is that it allows you to connect your multiplayer's data that is in your account. So all those session recordings that you saw, it connects it automatically to your AI agent. So my AI agents now, in this case, I'm using ChatGPT 4.1, and you can instruct your AI. To implement new features, make changes, or fix bugs using insights or data that is pulled from any session recording of your choice. This makes it easier for it to give you the right code with minimal prompting. Like for example, now look at this session recording now on at this particular session recording. There was an error here. There was an error. This hello is not defined, and that's what's right here. It says hello is not defined. So what happened? That I just gave the prompt saying, how do I solve? I didn't even say hello undefined. I just told it, how do I solve the errors for this session recording? And it automatically knew what I was talking about. It now says the error at line 45, which is here, says cannot find a name hello. To fix this, remove the line hello from your code, as it is not a valid statement or variable. I can also say, it can also tell you, would you like me to remove it for you? If I say yes, please, it will automatically remove this and fix and rewrite my code. So to me, this is the most powerful feature of the multiplayer application, is the fact that all this information that is stored, it takes it, feeds it into your AI, and uses it to do what? To properly debug your code. Now, another major advantage of using the multiplayer is that when if you look at, we come to the notebook section. So the notebook section, what it does is that it allows you to basically design, test, and debug any of the API endpoints that you use in your code without ever having the need to leave multiplayer. And it basically works similar to an API tool like Postman. So what it does is that, just like Postman, you get your request URL, your body, your header, set the necessary variables, your authorization, and this is the same thing I use here in my file upload system that I use to test. So what it automatically does is that it provides, for every request that you run here, it provides a living document which you can share with other members of your team, so that they can use and test from their own end. So every replay of an API endpoint produces a living document. And what I also want to mention is that you can also use it for other things, like where you have a normal JavaScript code to test functions, for example. So you can also have this here, and then you can also import an API collection. So you can import an API collection. So if you have like a JSON API collection from your Postman, for people who do backend development, do you understand what I mean? You can import it right here, and it will automatically reflect amongst your endpoints in your notebook. So basically, it's bringing different things from your console.log and your network tab features in your browser development tools, down to your API management tools, and down to the use of softwares like Datadog to keep track of response times. It's basically bringing it all into one place without having the need for you to leave multiplayer at all. So another thing I also wanted to mention is that so concerning the MCP server, what you can basically do is that come to their documentation and you can add the server. So this is their documentation for you to add an MCP server. And so when you just follow their documentation, so when you've added the server, you can then connect it with your API tool using your configuration tools here, and then all the context and all the information in your multiplayer app will automatically be fed into this AI agent to properly debug your code and give you the correct response that you are looking for. So, and that's another thing. Then we also have what we call the systems feature. Now the system feature provides us always an up-to-date map of your entire application or architecture, like the components, for example, that have been mounted in this case, as you see, the API, the APIs that were queried, the dependencies that were used in your projects, and which environment are you currently running the project or that component on, whether is it on your dev, staging, or production environment. And although to be able to use this system feature, I must mention that you must connect your backend app. You must do a backend setup. You must generate a backend API key, and then you must also connect it to your backend app to the multiplayer um, telemetry feature, whereby it will be able to keep track or traces of every request that you make. And so everything from your front-end components to your back-end APIs to your dependencies to your environment, it will properly keep track of it, and then it will give you a proper report. So another thing I also wanted to mention is that the multiplayer MCP server allows you to connect multiplayer's data directly to your AI agents. You can instruct it then to implement new features, make changes, or fix bugs using insights or data pulled from the session recording. It then gives you the right code with less prompting. Then the next thing is the repositories. So the repositories now, in this case, like using mine as an example, this is the sandbox, and this is my own project I tested it with. So using the repository, you can open PRs or issues directly, and it will be tied to sessions. So when you open a PR, you can tie some sessions to it so that they can know that, okay, this particular pull request is addressing what is in that session recording. So the multiplayer app, to me it's very innovative in the sense that although when it comes to debugging, AI does a lot of that, but the multiplayer apps gives you a good way to properly feed the correct data to your AI so that it can properly debug your code. I don't know if you know what I mean. So I would also like to also say that there are also some improvements I feel could be made on the app by the multiplayer team. One is that I recommend that on their platform, on their app, there should be a step-by-step tutorial video for different kind of frameworks, let's say like Next.js or React, that gives more detail on how to use multiplayer app and connect it with your projects on VS Code, especially the MCP server, the system dashboard that's connecting your backend, and also other things that has to do with the connection of the MCP server to your app, because honestly to set some of it up was a little bit difficult. It was not quite easy. Another thing I also want to also mention, an improvement that they could also make, is that on the component section, that's on the system, it just shows which components mounted, but it lacks insight on how long did a component take to mount, similar to the way tools like React Profiler does it, where it tells you the mount times, the render times, the parent to child propagation delays, how long it takes for the data to pass from parent to child components. And also it should also give you an insight on page load. How long does it take from the entire page to load? Because the entire page to load, it takes into context both the mount times and the time to get the data. So how long it takes will also be an important metric, because if the page load time is too slow, users will start leaving the site. So these are some of my reviews, and these are some of my experience working with the multiplayer app. So if you have any question, any inquiries about it, you need help, just let me know and I'll give